We have lost the war, George, militarily. This is a war that militarily we cannot win. We don't have the right weapons for it. We're not organized to do it. We're confronting a fundamentally new way of war that Iran has mastered. And this has been a serious strategic setback for the United States from that standpoint, because a lot of people are now aware of the limitations on American military power that previously they were unaware of. And the second part of it is that we do not have any peace negotiations underway. We have this thing they call a memorandum of understanding, which is not terribly popular because it essentially codifies the loss that we have sustained. I don't think you're going to get an agreement ultimately. I think it's an impossibility because the Israelis are not going to allow it to happen. And they're not going to allow it to happen because they are now in a fight for their very existence. This is an existential threat to Israel if it is ultimately approved in any form. And they want to make sure that we never disengage and that we stay engaged in a perpetual conflict, because that's what they must have if they are to have not only their Greater Israel project at this point, but to actually survive. We're dealing now with not just not supply demand destruction. We have supply chain destruction. We have supply chain problems. We have weaponized checkpoints, higher food and fuel inflation, slower growth. And the president himself stated it very clearly when he was in Versailles. He said, we're on the road to a global depression. He's correct. The longer this lasts, the worse this gets, because we're looking at losses and shortages across a wide range of petroleum products. And these losses are not going to be made good quickly. Let's say that you're successful in loading up 1,000 ships with oil and sending them out. Well, it takes time for them to reach their destination. They'll be offloaded, and then they've got to return. None of it's happening quickly. Right now, there's a trickle moving through the Gulf, and that's for good reason. Nobody trusts the circumstances. No one is sure of what's going to happen. So I would say, no, that's unacceptable. And I think the only solution for us to really end this war and get out of it, which is what President Trump wants, and I think most Americans do, is to disengage militarily, pull out, get out of the area, because as long as we are in the region in any way, shape, or form, we are at risk of being drawn back into the conflict. And the second time around, it could be much, much worse than it was the first time around. Iran is stronger now than it's ever been. It has more capability than it's ever had. On the other hand, our capabilities are largely unchanged, and we have ultimately sacrificed a lot of our arsenal in order to participate in this war on behalf of Israel. And that's tough, because that means that President Trump has to tell the Israelis effectively, we're out. If you want to continue this, you're on your own. He can't really do that with the Congress, since the Israeli lobby, the Jewish lobby in Washington, owns Congress, as well as essentially, for all intents and purposes, the White House. And that's the only problem I see with your poll right now. You say your polling question is the wrong one. The American people, more than 70% of Americans, want nothing to do with this war and would eagerly walk away. It's not a question of the American people. It's the government. Well, the risk for the Israelis, as well as for us here in the United States, is the following. If President Trump simply wallows in the middle, in other words, he sits on the fence, he doesn't really take decisive action one way or the other, which, of course, is what we've done in Ukraine. Let's be clear, that Ukraine is very much in the same category right now for us. He wants out of that. He wants out of the war in the Middle East, but he's unwilling to take or afraid to take the action necessary. So what does it mean? Well, it chokes off hundreds of millions of people from liquefied natural gas around the world, residential heating, cooking, and industrial manufacturing. It blocks the export of roughly 30% of the global supply of ammonia-based nitrogen fertilizer, halts the production of 30% of the world's helium, which are used, as you know, in semiconductors, medical imaging devices. Here at home, it means that inflation is unchecked. Here at home, it means the bond market will eventually collapse, just as the gilt market is going to collapse where you are. When that happens, and I think we're coming to that probably in the fall at the latest, could happen before the end of the summer, people will start talking about removing President Trump.